Good morning and good afternoon. In the Zendo today we have Alex, Griffin, Rain, Jack, Mavanui and myself, Neti. And on Zoom we have Francis in Canberra, Emmy from Sydney, Mark from Pennsylvania, Joe from Melbourne, Anita from Santa Cruz and Kai from New Mexico. So welcome everyone. I'd like to talk about the value of Zazen. And I think it's a wonderful thing that Twining Vines, we actually sit every day. We have Zoom Zazen every day. And I think that's not an accident that we make that the central part of what we do. Many teachers have formed sanghas by just offering Zazen. And from the experience of Zazen, the aspiration to understand the Buddha's teachings grows and grows. And even after practicing Zazen for a long time, sometimes we can get tempted at different periods of time in our life to let that Zazen go a little bit. That happens to practitioners sometimes. Sometimes there's just so much to do that the doing starts to override the Zazen practice. But in fact, the busier you are, the more valuable it is to do Zazen, because you're doing so much if you're busy, and the Zazen strengthens the quality of what we do. Our doing is more skillful when it's informed by a mind that is not in resistance to reality. It's informed by a realized mind that accepts reality. Then our actions are more potent, more skillful, more beneficial. And just the other day I heard of a short dialogue between Suzuki Roshi and a student. After a Zen talk, a student asked him, "How would I know if I'm enlightened?" Which I think is a kind of a really very honest question. How would I know if I'm enlightened? I started to try and formulate, what will Suzuki Roshi say? How will he answer this question? And what he said was, an enlightened person doesn't complain. Isn't that great? An enlightened person doesn't complain. It feels so like such a simple answer to say that the awakened mind doesn't complain. But if we look closely at what that means, it's completely full of the teachings. Because to complain is to be in resistance to whatever is arising in front of you. And our task is not to be in resistance to whatever is arising, but to respond to whatever is arising. And that response might be not to do anything, just to be aware. It might be just to be aware. But that's what the awakened mind does. It responds to what's arising. It doesn't resist what's arising. And if we don't resist what's arising, we see it more accurately. And when we see more accurately, we respond more skillfully. Because it's kind of self-evident that if you're not seeing things accurately, it's not really possible to respond skillfully to it, because you're responding to an illusion an invention of your own mind. And one of the most foundational teachings we have on Zazen is the Fukanza Zengi by Dogen, that translates as the universal promotion of the principles of Zazen. And he wrote this, it was his first main piece of writing before the whole body of works called Shobogenzo. This was sort of before it, but it's often included in his writings anyway. So this was written in 1227. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what he says about why he wrote it. And then it's short enough that I think I can read the whole thing and just comment a little bit throughout. So this is what he said about why he wrote it. Since in Japan it has never been possible to learn about the special transmission outside the scriptures, or the treasure of the right Dharma eye, much less the principle of Zazen, they have not been transmitted here. So as soon as I returned home from the land of China and students began coming to me for instruction, I was obliged for their sakes to compile this work on the principles of Zazen. Long ago, the Chinese Zen master Po Chang constructed a monastery with a hall set aside especially for Zazen practice. In so doing, he effectively transmitted the true style of the first Zen patriarch Bodhidharma. This style was distinct from the briars and brambles of word attachment that had preceded him. This is something that students should know and not be confused about. So that's kind of encouragement to really take this teaching of Zazen, which looks so, it kind of looks so nothing-ish when we do it. We're just sitting there doing nothing. We look like we're sort of doing nothing with our bodies and doing nothing with our minds. But what we kind of are doing with our bodies and with our minds is we are being present. We are practicing presence. And this is the most important thing that informs every single thing that we do. Everything we do stems from how our mind perceives the world. So it begins with a series of questions that are commonly asked about why do Zazen? Because the teachings say the world is perfect, everything is perfect. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe. So one could ask, well then why do we have to do this thing? So it starts with those questions. The way is originally perfect and all-pervading. How could it be contingent upon practice and realization? The Dharma wheel is utterly free and untrammeled. What need is there for our concentrated effort? Indeed, the whole body is far from being the world's dust. Who could believe in a means to brush it clean? It is never apart from you where you are. What use is there going off here and there to practice? And yet, if there is the slightest discrepancy, the way is as distant as heaven from earth. And I just want to make a point here. This is such a critical, important teaching that most of us at different moments stumble with. If there is the slightest discrepancy, that means if there is anything that you leave out of your concern, if you leave anything out about what you care about, that is like the distance between heaven and earth. We have to include everything all the time, over and over and over. Whatever's arising in reality, we have to include it. So right now, as probably most of us are aware, Russia has just invaded the Ukraine. And we have to love everyone about that, around that whole thing that is happening, the catastrophe of the whole thing. We have to love everyone. If the least like or dislike arises, the mind is lost in confusion. Suppose you gain pride of understanding, inflate your own achievement, glimpse the wisdom that runs through all things, attain the way and clarify your mind, raising an aspiration to escalade the very sky. You are making an initial, partial excursion through the frontiers of the Dharma, but you are still deficient in the vital way of total emancipation. Look at the Buddha himself, who was possessed of great inborn knowledge. The influence of his 6 years of upright sitting is noticeable still. Or Bodhidharma, who transmitted the Buddha's mind seal. The fame of his 9 years of wall sitting is celebrated to this day. Since this was the case with the saints of old, how can people today dispense with the negotiation of the way? And it is this teaching that has helped me when I've been tempted to not sit. We get tempted. Some people, maybe none of you get tempted. Occasionally, maybe not so much now, but definitely throughout my practice I have been tempted to not sit. In fact, I would be tempted to not sit if we weren't sitting every day with twining vines. That was my skillful means for myself to make sure I sit every day. So just knowing that the Buddha continued to sit after his awakening under the Bodhi tree, he didn't say, I've got it now, I don't need to sit. And all our ancestors, right through to the present time, continue to return to the cushion, continue to sit. So we can bring that to mind and say, maybe I'm mistaken thinking it's not that important. But it's still okay to have a day off if you're really tired. Of course, we're not rigid. You should therefore cease from practice based on intellectual understanding, pursuing words and following after speech, and learn the backward step that turns your light inward to illuminate yourself. Body and mind will drop away of themselves, and your original face will manifest itself. If you wish to attain suchness, you should practice suchness without delay. So this line has been spoken about probably tens of thousands of times. Learn the backward step that turns the light inward to illuminate yourself. Another way that you could think of this is turn the attention away from out there to here, right in front of your face, right in your face. Bring your attention to here and now, not there and then. We tend to be in there and then a lot in our minds. We're never actually there and then, we're always here, but we don't notice that we're here. So turn the light around to right now, right here, right now. And here it's referred to as suchness. You should practice suchness without delay. For the practice of Zen, a quiet room is suitable. Eat and drink moderately. Cast aside all involvements and cease all affairs. Do not think good, do not think bad. Do not administer pros and cons. Cease all the movements of the conscious mind, the gauging of all thoughts and views. Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. The practice of Zen has nothing whatsoever to do with the 4 bodily attitudes of moving, standing, sitting, or lying down. So do not think good, do not think bad. I think particularly is valuable if we are being self-critical about our Zazen. So do your best to give up criticizing your Zazen. At the place where you regularly sit, spread out a layer of thick matting and place a cushion on it. Sit either in the full lotus or half lotus posture. In the full lotus posture, you first place your right foot on your left thigh and your left foot on your right thigh. In the half lotus, you simply press your left foot against your right thigh. You should have robes and belt loosely bound and arranged in order. Then place your right hand on your left leg and your left palm facing upward on your right palm, thumb tips touching. Sit upright in correct bodily posture, inclining neither to the left nor the right, leaning neither forward nor backward. Be sure your ears are on a plane with your shoulders and your nose in line with your navel. Place your tongue against the front roof of your mouth with teeth and lips both shut. Your eyes should always remain open. You should breathe gently through the nose. So this is the classic instruction for our posture in Zazen. And sometimes people need to do it differently to that. So it's okay to do it differently to what's described here, but it's good to know that that is what you are doing. For example, sitting in a chair sometimes is the best posture for us. And sometimes sitting in seiza rather than in lotus or half lotus is better for us. And in some sanghas, rocking back and forth before you actually start sitting is the tradition. And also when the bell rings at the end, rocking side to side is the tradition. And in some sanghas, it's not. But it's good to know that this is the instruction from Dogen. Once you have adjusted yourself into this posture, take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, rock your body right and left and settle into a steady, unmoving position. Think of not thinking. How do you think of not thinking? Non-thinking. This in itself is the essential art of Zazen. So how do you think of not thinking? Non-thinking. And this we have to discover for ourselves in Zazen. So no amount of instruction is going to explain non-thinking to you. This is what we discover for ourselves in Zazen. The Zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. It is the practiced realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is things as they are in suchness. No traps or snares can ever reach it. Once its heart is grasped, you are like the dragon when he reaches the water, like the tiger when he enters the mountain. You must know that when you are doing Zazen, right there, the authentic Dharma is manifesting itself, striking aside dullness and distraction from the first. When you arise from sitting, move slowly and quietly, calmly and deliberately. Do not rise suddenly or abruptly. In surveying the past, we find the transcendence of ignorance and enlightenment, and dying while sitting or standing have all depended entirely on the strength gained through Zazen. Dying while sitting or standing is a way to speak about selflessness, of letting go of referencing everything from your self, from your sense of yourself. When we let go of that and simply be in the vastness without that self-referencing, that is to die in Zazen while sitting or standing. Moreover, enlightenment brought on by the opportunity provided by a finger, a banner, a needle, or a mallet, the realization effected by the aid of a fly whisk, a fist, a staff, or a shout cannot be fully comprehended by human discrimination. It cannot be fully known by the practice realization of supernatural powers. It is activity beyond hearing and seeing, a principle prior to human knowledge or perception. And many of us here would know many of these stories about the moment of sudden collapsing of all discriminations at the sound of a pebble hitting the bamboo, or described here, a finger, a banner, a needle, or a mallet. This being the case, intelligence or lack of it does not matter. No distinction exists between the dull and sharp-witted. If you concentrate your efforts single-mindedly, you are thereby negotiating the way with your practice realization undefiled. As you proceed along the way, you will attain a state of everydayness. So this is very encouraging, that we don't have to be especially smart. We don't have to be especially sort of physically capable or strong. None of that matters. Dull or sharp-witted, it doesn't matter. The Buddha mind seal, whose customs and traditions extend to all things, is found in both India and China, both in our own world and in other worlds as well. It is simply a matter of devotion to sitting, total commitment to immovable sitting. Although it is said that there are as many minds as there are people, all of them must negotiate the way solely in Zazen. Why leave behind your proper place, which exists right in your own home, and wander aimlessly off to the dusty realms of other lands? If you make even a single misstep, you stray from the great way lying directly before you. You have gained the pivotal opportunity of human form. Do not let your time pass in vain. You are maintaining the essential function of the Buddha way. Would you take meaningless delight in the spark of a flintstone? Form and substance are like dewdrops on the grass, destiny like the dart of lightning, vanishing in an instant, disappearing in a flash. So this line here, would you take meaningless delight in the spark of a flintstone? A flintstone is, you know, when you strike two stones and there's a spark. It's describing that as how brief our life is, how short our life is. And to be caught up just in the details of that and then lose it is, you know, would be, if that was all you were thinking about, just this short brevity of your own life, what a loss that is. It's too small when we can rest in the boundless, timeless. Honoured followers of Zen, you who have long been accustomed to groping for the elephant, please do not be suspicious of the true dragon. And here's this story that Bhavan likes. So I'm just going to quickly read this footnote, which is a story about a dragon. The true dragon is an allusion to a story in the latter hand history about a man named Ye Kung Su, who had a passion for dragons. He had paintings and carvings of dragons throughout his house. One day, a real dragon, hearing about Ye's obsession, descended from the sky to pay him a visit. It poked its head through Ye's front window, scaring him witless. Dogen is insinuating that the Japanese of his time, ignorant of the true Dharma, had acquired a passion for false teachings. He tells them that now that he has brought them the real Dharma, they should not doubt its truth. And a little like that reference to the beginning about not getting caught in briars and brambles. This is the last paragraph. Devote your energy to a way that points directly to suchness. Revere the person of complete attainment beyond all human agency. Gain accord with the enlightenment of the Buddhas. Succeed to the legitimate lineage of the ancestors Samadhi. Constantly comport yourself in such a manner, and you are assured of being a person such as they. Your treasure trove will open of itself, and you will use it at will. There we go. Beautiful teaching of Dogen's. Fukanza Zengi.